Hello, phenomenal people. How are you? I am so excited on today. I have a special guest for you, Miss Catherine Knowles, the author of The Doughnut Tree. I'm so excited for her to be here, and you guys are going to be excited soon. So welcome to the show, Catherine.
Thank you for having me, Tonia.
Well, I wanted to have you last week, but I was out of town. So now that I'm back in town, I want you to talk to my audience about the journey of being an author.
Okay, busy lady. I'll begin with the process of writing the book took me almost 2 years.
Wow.
Mainly because I didn't know I was going to write a book. I didn't know I had it in me. I began doing some research on some property that we owned, and I began to find out a lot of things about Huntsville that I didn't know. And the more research that I did, the more I found out. And I began to think, the true life events that happened in Huntsville 100 years ago were more fascinating than fiction. They were all true. And so ideas kept coming in my head. And so I spent about maybe 6 months researching and probably 6 solid months of writing the book. And then the rest of the time was editing and re-editing and just the whole process of publishing. So it was about a 2-year journey.
Okay. So the history of Huntsville, is that what made you want to be an author, or is this something that was always in you? You always wanted to write a book, or did you just decide that, hey, I want to tell everybody about Huntsville, Alabama?
That's more of the truth is the more I found out, I just found it fascinating that, the town that I've lived in my whole life,
wow,
all these stories. And when I say research, I went to the Huntsville Madison County Library. On the third floor, there's the Record Center. And in there is located just all kinds of treasures. And by that, I mean all the court records, anything from tax records, probates, murder cases, and all the newspapers. And so I would ponder through them all and looking at the newspapers and what the women were wearing and what they used on their hair and their skin and the elixirs that made them young and beautiful, and probably all had alcohol in it. But anyways, I just the more I read the newspapers, I was just fascinated that some of these old buildings that were talked about, that people lived in, that businesses were in, they're still there in downtown Huntsville. Some of those old houses, and I could just walk around the streets of downtown and think, I wonder, what these people were like. Not just what I read in the newspaper, but I wondered, who was he married to? What was the wife like? Was she nice? Was she mean? How many children did they have? Did they all work? Were times hard? Were times good? Through every newspaper article. And I thought, I can fill in the blanks on some of this, of the things that actually happened. But let me begin with why I started the book. We live on the Tennessee River. We have some farm property down there. And I knew the area that we lived in was once called the town of Taylorsville.
Yeah.
And it was a little train town. It's a ghost town now. There's a little bit of remnants of it, a old barn that used to be a general store, the trestle to the railroad tracks where the tracks actually loaded the train cars onto barges onto the Tennessee River so that the trains could be pushed down to Guntersville. And then once it was in Guntersville, the train cars would be reloaded on the train tracks down to Gadsden. And the importance of that is from Gadsden all the way to Mobile, there was a waterway. So all the cotton and the cotton byproducts that were produced here in Madison County were able to be transported out of the Bay of Mobile. Thus, it went all over the world, coming from right here in our our hometown. So I knew about the town of Taylorsville. What I didn't know is there was a man that was hung on my property.
Wow.
His name was Herman Dealey. And that is what started me on this, because I wanted to know more. Why was this man hung? What did he do? What happened to the people that did it? Who was his family? And so that's what my journey started me on. It was just morbid curiosity. I wanted to know why. Why did this guy do so bad?
Now, were you like that as a child?
Yeah, curious, always poking in my nose into things I shouldn't have. Yes.
Did your mother just say, stop doing that, Catherine?
Why do you ask why all the time was the one thing my parents would say. But I so I really just had this passion for finding out what happened to this man. You know, he was on the property that I'm living on. Yes, it was 100 years ago, but it was just a drive. I couldn't stop it. And so it took me almost 6 months to find out more about the case, and because I had the last name wrong. It was one letter wrong. So once I found it and I started reading the newspaper articles, and Herman Dealey was a black man. And like I said, he was hung. There were 3 white guys that did it. Mm-hmm. And but the fascinating part, I thought, was there was actually a murder trial. Somebody took it upon themselves to try and bring justice.
Wow.
This was 100 years ago.
Wow.
In Alabama.
In Alabama?
So it just fascinated me that there was actually a trial.
Wow.
And
so who was the judge at the time?
I'm not sure the judge on that particular case. Because I read so much about other judges that were murdered.
I read that in the book.
But the 3 white guys did get off, even though there were 20 witnesses. And I wonder, you know, in my head, I was thinking, why didn't one of those people try and stop it? But I didn't live back then, so I don't know the circumstances of such things. But it just, and so when I was writing the book, I had to include Herman in it. And so that's a little bit of fiction there. I made him into the music man. Because I like music and I wanted some happiness out of there. But mainly, I just wanted to kind of resurrect his name and give him homage for all eternity, because now his name is in black and white. I dedicate the book to Herman, because if it wasn't for him, I would have never gone to the library. I would have never found out all the other research that I did. And the sad part is, I think the only thing the man was guilty of is walking across somebody's property.
Wow. You know what? The very first time that I met you and you told me about the book, you know, I was interested in it because of the story you just told me. But one of the things that was so fascinating is when I began to read the book. You know, I'm thinking it's going to be, okay, this history book, this history about, okay, how racism is here. But this book is actually phenomenal.
Ooh,
okay, so this book, I'm going to tell you, audience, this book begins with like this story that I don't want to tell you about it, but it's so amazing. It's like, if you are an avid reader and you like books, see, I'm a self-help type girl, but this book is not a self-help book. It is a feel-good, you know, I can do anything book. And maybe, you know, on the other side of this break, maybe Catherine will kind of tell you a little bit about Molly Teal, because she's my hero in the book. So just talk a little bit about that after the break, but I'm going to go on break. But I want you guys to know that you can reach me on Phenomenon, and you also can find me at Tonia Phenom. And also what I want you to do is remember there's an important event coming September 17th at Lincoln Mills. You will see Catherine Knowles. She will have books there for you. You'll see a lot of people there. So, but I want you to do before you get to the show and before you get to the event is feel the fear and do it anyway. I'll see you after the break.
Hello, this is Rich Ortiz, and I'm here with
Tonia Jones.
And together we're going to talk about an incredible event coming up September 17th.
And it is called the Phenomenon Experience.
Are you hearing this? Phenomenon Experience. And it's all about bringing all of Huntsville together and collaborating together and just bringing out the best in
people that's feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Do you hear that? Feeling the fear and doing it anyway. This is what you're going to experience when you are at Lincoln Mills, September 17th from 6 to 9 with the ultimate
Tonia Jones,
Miss Phenomenon.
Phenomenon with Tonia will be back right after this.
Validar, Flames of Camelot, is the first installment of an epic trilogy that follows the exploits of this mythical warrior as he journeys through time and space. Available at TatePublishing.com.
Hi, this is Chance Glenn. The best way to support the show is to buy from Amazon.com through our website at morningbirdmedia.com. Everyone buys online these days, from school supplies to Christmas gifts, and everyone buys from Amazon.com. You can help us by clicking on the Amazon button on our webpage, then shopping as you normally do. There's no additional cost to do this, but a part of what you purchase goes towards helping the show. With it, we can keep this content coming the way you like it at morningbirdmedia.com.
Make your next event, workshop, or conference more powerful with improved networking for attendees and more useful analytics about those in attendance using Confab Analytics' new professional networking environment. Sign your event up with Confab Analytics and tailor our networking environment to suit your specific event. Your attendees simply download our free Confab app to their mobile device. Through the app, they are able to check in without waiting in line and can share key information electronically with fellow attendees. Using your custom Confab event portal, you can view and store analytics about your attendees, as well as send to them individually or as a group up-to-date information about everything going on at your event. They'll always know where the best networking opportunities are. By using Confab Analytics' professional networking environment, your attendees will have a better experience and be more likely to tell others about how good your event was. In turn, you'll have more meaningful data about your attendees so you can give them an even better experience next time. Confab maximizes your event by making you and your attendees part of the network and a whole lot more. For more information, visit confabanalytics.com or email sales@confabanalytics.com. Confab, connecting the most important part of the network, you.
The Morning Bird Media Network at morningbirdmedia.com.
Welcome back to Phenomenon. Now, here's Tonia.
Welcome back with the adventure with Miss Catherine Knowles and the Doughnut Tree. Now, I said I was going to tell her to talk a little bit about Molly Till, but I want her to talk about why she named the book first, The Doughnut Tree. So tell the audience about that.
Well, Tonia, you can find that out in the book. Towards the end, you can find the answer to that question. But I will like to fill everybody in more about what the book is about. I use the word whimsical sometimes, and people think that's an old-timey word, but it is a whimsical historical fiction about our hometown of Huntsville. So many of the incidents that are in the book are actually real. And one of them I'll share with you tonight was about a judge. It was during this time frame of the book, Alabama was dry. Mm-hmm. And so all the crooked politicians were the ones who had their hands in on the bootlegging money or the payoffs.
Like
yeah, things haven't changed too much, Alabama politics. And so, but that's one of those kind of pieces in the middle of the story, and it's true. But to me, I found that the murder of the judge, he was in an election, and the guy who lost the election picked him up downtown at the courthouse on the square and drove him down to Ditto Landing, and he murdered him there. And they found his body a couple days later beneath that old steel bridge that still exists. That's real. That's real.
Wow.
And without giving too much of the story away, there were 6 men that were involved in the bootlegging scheme. Actually 7. The police chief, it was his taxi cabs that drove down to Ditto Landing and picked up the booze and brought it into town, using his police officers to drive. Once the murder and everything broke out, he resigned. The sheriff committed suicide, as well as the assistant district attorney committed suicide because they thought they would be implicated in the murder of the judge. And a couple of them just mysteriously died, got hit by a train or something. And then the man who was eventually caught, tried, and convicted, he was, of course, going to appeal the case. But the case in Huntsville was kind of tainted because this brought national attention to this small little town of less than 10,000 people. Mm-hmm. The New York Times to the Los Angeles Times were here in Huntsville, camped out for this because it was, Southern politics, murder, alcohol, all the good things that keep people's attention at the time. But
right.
And so they all camped out here, and they infiltrated the jurors, and they were tampered with, and like, the truth is stranger than fiction. This has got to be in a book. So the man that did it, and this isn't the whole plot of the story, so don't feel like I'm giving away too much. They convicted him, and they were afraid that while he was waiting to appeal the case, that someone would break him out of the jail here in Huntsville. So they thought, we'll put him in Birmingham to have safekeeping
that's where I'm from.
That's where they wanted to keep him until that there was another case. Well, guess what? He's in Birmingham, and he bust out of jail there to a waiting car with cash and steamship tickets to South America and some guns. But he doesn't make it out of Birmingham before he gets in a shootout with the police. and he gets killed. So I know it just keeps
Wow.
getting more and more layers to
You
the
guys
story.
gotta get the
but
book.
it's true. And so he gets killed in Birmingham, but I always wondered who set him up in Birmingham. Was it a friend that left that car and in the cash and the tickets? Was it an enemy that didn't want him to come back to Huntsville?
A frenemy.
A frenemy, yeah, that didn't, that wanted to take over the bootlegging booze industry. So I never knew, who actually set him up, but that kind of ties many of the other incidents of the story together. Now, before the break, you asked about Molly Teal.
I asked about Molly
Okay,
Teal.
there's two different Molly Teals. There's one in the story, and she could possibly be related to the one that we all know in Huntsville, Madam Molly Teal. She was a madam, and she was Madam Molly Teal was very, very wealthy when she died in 1899. She also owned this huge Victorian mansion. She didn't have any children, and she didn't like any of her family, so she left that big old house to be the infirmary for Huntsville. Now,
explain to some people. I mean, I know everybody knows what a madam is, but this lady made her money by being a madam. What's a madam? What's actually a madam?
Well, a madam is the mother of the prostitutes, we'll say in a nice way.
Okay, all right.
But Madam Molly Teal was much more than just a prostitute. She invested in businesses.
Wow.
When women weren't allowed to have bank accounts or own property. Madam Molly Teal was one of the founders, investors of Dallas Mills, one of the first mills in town. She also, looking at tax records, when I said, how boring looking at court records and stuff, but if you look at some of the probate records, the tax records, and some of the things, like I said, in the probate that was left when she died, she was very wealthy, not just from the prostitution business, but from who she knew and her connections. And she was networking way before networking came along.
That's key.
Like one of her friends would probably tell her, maybe Madam Molly Teal, you might ought to buy up that property. A month later, the railroad came along and said, Madam Molly Teal, we want that property that you own, and we're going to give you $20,000.
Wow.
So she flipped the property quite often, knowing who was going to buy what. So back to, she leaves this big old house of hers to be the infirmary of Huntsville, because there wasn't one. And she also left 15 acres around there. That is now known as Huntsville Hospital.
Yes.
So we have a madam to thank for our healthcare system as we know it now.
That's awesome. I wanted you to talk about her because of how you portray her in the book, and even how she begins as
that'll be the next book. That'll be the prequel to this one. This one, the Molly Teal, like I said, I don't want to give away any secrets, but she had a very difficult start in life.
Yes.
And she decided to, when life throws you lemons, she made lemonade.
Yes,
and she did a good job of it.
She did.
And so, it's a wonderful tale how, she fell in love and rose above all the obstacles that life had to bring her. But
she felt the fear, and she did it anyway.
She did it anyway.
Yes,
and
right.
she did it better than anybody else did.
She did.
She made a success out of herself doing it better than anyone else. So.
She did.
But
I think that if the audience just looking at the title, the events that take place in the book, you probably wouldn't realize that it's in the book. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I wanted Catherine on the show, because when I picked up the book, I was like, oh my God, this is really a good book. And it's also something where someone can just pick it up and say, hey, I can do that. There are different stories, and they also can relate to some things that happened in the story, things like that. And I think that you did a phenomenal job with the book. And it's self-published.
It
Isn't
did.
That right?
I had the notion that once I completed the book, that all these big publishing companies would come knocking at my door. Well, it's not exactly how it happened. I did self-publish through Amazon, and I didn't know that I would ever break even. And so I published last May, and by November, I learned to hustle, and I paid that debt off by November.
Wow.
And I had another, personal goal of selling maybe 1,000 books in my lifetime, because I'm not John Grisham. I know that. In January, I passed the 1,000 book mark. So I'm just going to keep on with it. And back several months ago, I had a man in Hollywood read my book. He said he read it in one sitting from Los Angeles to Boston on the flight. He loved it. He thinks there's potential for that to be maybe a movie or a miniseries. And wouldn't that be great if we were some extras in the Doughnut Tree
I need to
movie?
be an extra in the Doughnut Tree. They need somebody phenomenal to
They
be
sure do.
an extra.
They do. But wouldn't that be great if we did get this made into a movie and they made it here in Huntsville?
Yes, wouldn't it be great if we could just kind of put it on here in Huntsville, put a play on, actually.
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome, too. See, that's one of the things I want you guys to understand, that, we're trying to build Huntsville. And the thing is that Huntsville's kind of like one of the world's best kept secrets. Mm-hmm. We're known for government contracting. We're known for the defense industry. But you got people like Catherine Knowles that's an author, and she's excited about it. So, I want you guys to kind of feel the fear and do what it is that you're called to do. I always talk about being created to be something, within your gut. Like, Catherine, didn't you feel it?
I think what I felt was, this is not trying to sound hokey, I was inspired by God. Yeah. That's just the truth of the matter.
Whatever your inspiration
I give God the full credit for this coming to be a published book.
That's awesome.
But one thing I would like to add is I was not a good student, and I'm not a really good speller or grammar. It was okay. Writing a book, you really need to be technical. But because I self-published and used, an editor and all that, where I'm going is, if I can write a book, I think anybody can if they set their mind to it. Or not just writing a book, or
you got to be
whatever.
disciplined.
You've got to be disciplined. But the entrepreneur in all of us, I just want to say, I've always been a storyteller, but I never imagined writing a book. I mean, it didn't even occur to me.
Right.
And so now that I've got that accomplishment, I would just love to encourage other people that do want to write a book to sit down and do it, even if it's just an hour every night. Let your mind, let your imagination just go crazy with, what you can come up with.
I can come up with some crazy things.
Yeah, well, write it down, and then
if anybody wants that to be in the book.
That's crazy stuff. And Tonia, I'll share one other thing that people find fascinating is I wrote the entire book in a notebook, pen to paper. Well, because when I'm on the computer, it doesn't flow. There's spell check and there's a big white screen. On a piece of paper, I can make one sentence last 2 pages with no commas.
That's good.
Well, then when I had to, enter it into the computer, I cleaned it up. But my flow was better writing pen to paper.
Just actually writing it. And I find that actually writing things down, it actually helps it to become a part of you.
Right.
When I speak a lot of things like that, I'll write down what's in my head, because I can just look at it just one time because I've already written it, and it became a part of who I am. Doesn't it? I mean,
I do that. I write things down and it becomes more permanent than just, that's silly, because I can go to the grocery store with a big list. If I've written it down, I don't have to look at it.
You know it. That's right.
Because I wrote it down.
Yeah, you're kind of visual. That's really, really, really good. Now, I want you to tell the audience how to find you, where to find your book, where you're going to be, all this good thing, so they can know who Catherine Knowles really is.
Well, right now you can find my book on Amazon. It's available in print and Kindle. As far as an author, that's probably the best for me to have people order the book on Amazon than pick. But I have it locally all over town, from the Space and Rocket Center, Botanical Gardens, Star Market, and I even have them available at the car wash. I kid you not.
Working at the car wash.
Yes. So it's available all over town, but if you want to do the author a favor, order it on Amazon.
And if you want to do Morning Bird a favor, you can go to www.morningbirdmedia.com and click on Amazon, and that will help the author and Morning Bird Media. So, hey,
it's 2 for 1.
That's good. That's good. Now, I want you to say something too when you were talking about writing, because you told me this. When you sent your manuscript off for someone to edit, and we're like from Alabama, so there are like things that only Alabama people can say. Tell them about how they want to
the
change.
editor was probably not Southern, because the word "bless your heart," she kept wanting to correct it, and I use it in appropriate places like we do in the South. Well,
right.
You say something maybe not so nice about somebody, but bless your heart.
Yeah.
So the editor and bank walker, she didn't understand that one, and folded money, she didn't understand. She wanted to correct that one, but
what she wanted the Chains folded money.
I don't. We all know what folded money. It means you got money, girl. You got folded money in your pocket, not just change.
Yeah, you got some money in your pocket.
So, she was obviously not from the South, but she did a wonderful job, and I would recommend anyone that wants to publish to go through Amazon. They did a phenomenal job.
Oh, that's a good
for
word.
me. And in my next book, I plan on going through Amazon again.
Great. So is there anything else you want to kind of tell the audience? Or?
Well, I don't want to give too much about the book.
No, I'm just saying about you, about Catherine Knowles.
About me. I'm just delighted to be here with you today, and I just can't thank you enough for having me on your show.
No, you are phenomenal. I'm so thankful that, connections is key. I've been connected with so many people because the connection builds another connection that builds another connection. And you guys can't see the people that's in the room, but we're all connected on so many different levels. You have an educator, you all probably know who he is. And then you have someone that snaps pictures all the time, and talks all the time, that's energetic, and
networks with everyone.
Yeah, he was on my show too, so I'm not going to tell you. But you have a quiet storm now that's in the room. She's videoing me. So guess what? When you see my videos, they're going to be hot because she did them. And then you have Miss Catherine Knowles, and then you have phenomenal me. So, I want you guys to get out, build relationships, build connections, just feel the fear and do it anyway. So I want you to meet me September 17th at Lincoln Mill from 6 to 9. I'm going to have an event page. You can't come unless you download this app called Confab Analytics. And I know you heard the commercial. So, you guys going to have to get in gear and do what you're supposed to do. So I want to thank Miss Catherine Knowles again for being on the show. I'm absolutely excited. And I want you to come to the event. Have lots of books.
I wouldn't miss it, Tonia.
You
September 17th. I'll be there. 17th. I look forward to meeting everyone.
All right. Well, you guys check me out on Facebook. Visit me at Tonia Phenom on Twitter. Also, look at me on Periscope. And again, you guys, guess what? Feel the fear and do it anyway. I'll see you on the other side. Bye.
This has been Phenomenon with Tonia. To learn more about the show, visit morningbirdmedia.com, or you can email at phenomenon@morningbirdmedia.com. Also, check out Facebook under Phenomenon. Come back and join Tonia as she helps you feel the fear and do it anyway.